Hey guys, it's Max Convexity. How's everyone doing today? I have a good one planned for you today. It's a follow-up of my video the other day on how to hedge $1,000,000. Okay, but after that video, I received this comment. So the comment said, interesting way to protect a portfolio that's not really known to the public. I wonder how this compares to the bucket strategy, which is keeping 3 to 5 years in bonds and cash to protect from a prolonged down market when you compare the opportunity cost to cash and bonds to stocks. So that's a great question. And they said they were lost somewhere, but the strategy showed, do you participate in market appreciation or you cap like the high yield funds? And this is such a great question. I appreciate this. And I did not do a very good job explaining it last time. And I've made some better examples that I think illustrate it clearly. But yes, retirement buckets are a great idea. In my scenario last time, the guy did not use retirement buckets. He probably should have been, but he didn't. He had everything in growth. But to me, the concept of being 60-40, which is 60 growth or 60 equity and 40 fixed income, is pretty much similar to the bucket strategy, because the first, or actually being maybe 60-30-10. You know, some people keep 10 in cash, maybe 30 in fixed income, and maybe 60 in growth. I think that would be similar to the bucket strategy. So the bucket strategy is like 6 months worth of cash or something, the way that it was back in the 90s. It may have changed since I was selling the bucket strategy to people. But the second bucket's for your intermediate needs, like the next 1 to 3 years. So you usually use T-bills or CDs or other fixed income investments for that bucket. And of course, the last bucket is growth. But really, if you do a 60-40 or 60-30-10 or something, it's basically the same thing. But yes, that's the way you should do it. And that's a great strategy. And that could be used at the same time as this strategy too. But in the example, my friend, we're going to say it was my friend, was not a good planner. So the premise of the story, and the story was vastly oversimplified, but what was going on is he had about $1 million 401k, and he's up around 25% this year. He's one of those guys that just check the box growth and just doesn't think about it, right? Okay, so he's in his mid-50s now. He's got him a 35-year-old girlfriend. She's hot. She wants to go to Bali, right? Okay. She wants to stay at the Four Seasons. Of course, who doesn't? And she wants to go first class. Okay. So the trip to Bali is going to cost about 35 grand. Okay. In my thing. So, but he's wondering what to do, because in that video, I was telling him to spend 35, 36 grand, something like that, to hedge his $1 million portfolio off. And I showed an example of how he could do it. So this is what he was actually up against. And he was actually looking at taking her to Bali or taking my advice. So I made some examples because I want to show how it works on the upside too, because of the question. So the reason he's doing this, for people that don't know, is because I was a bull on the market, but now I've turned cautious. And also this guy, let's say he follows Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's been sucking lately, and lots of times Bitcoin leads S&P. That's what I've noticed. So, I mean, there's reasons not to mention the election coming up. So there's all kinds of good reasons to maybe think about wanting to limit some risk between now and the end of the year. Okay. So, so I tell them, I say, hey, let's hedge some of this off. You're up $250,000, buddy. Let's get through the end of the year. Then let's get your portfolio diversified. To the spreadsheet we go. Okay, so I wanted to put some real numbers to this to see if this was even possible, my scenario that I just made up. So if a guy had 2,000 shares of SPY, and I'm using SPY as a proxy for being all in on growth. I mean, realistically, it'd probably be VU or VTI or a total market index of some type. SPY is close enough. So, and if you, last year SPY was at 439. Right now it's at 559. So if you had, you know, a $1.1 million portfolio last year, it would have been worth less than 900,000. You would be up $250,000 on paper. That's so, you know, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Now the cost to protect, I use several different strategies, and I was going with a $39,000 spread, but I ended up with a $36,000 spread. Any event is close enough. It says the wrong number on here a couple of times. I apologize. So here's the different scenarios though. Let's let's look at without getting into the option nerd part of it, let's look at just the payoff. All it is a ratio put spread. That's not not a sophisticated strategy. But and I'm not even going to talk strategy now, but just the outcome of the strategy. Let's say the market drops right away, like the week after next, and drops 20% or something. Well, $1 million portfolio will be down about 200,000, 220 or something. This option position would be up worth an additional $220,000. Okay, and then if the market dropped 30% or something, same thing, it would offset it. It offsets the loss. So the other thing is, though, if it doesn't happen for a long time, if it doesn't happen till November, this spread doesn't expire till the end of the year. So if it doesn't happen till November and the market drops 20%, it would offset it. And 30%, it would offset it. And then a little. Even if, but the other thing, here's what this is really designed for. This is designed just to leave on till expiration, because what happens, like if it goes to mid-October, something crazy with the election happens and the market drops 20% in a day or something crazy goes out, or 20% in a couple of days. Then wonder if something else comes out. And it's kind of like what happened in March. By the end of the year, the market rallies right back, right? Okay. And that is a very plausible scenario, and that's what this protects against, because you wouldn't have to cash this in. You would be, if the market dropped 20%, your stock position would be down about 200,000, but this option position would be, even before expiration, would be up about $250,000. So we would offset it. So no margin call. So if you did, maybe you put the hedge on and you took her to Bali. You could, if the person could really do this, my friend could have done this theoretically, taken her to Bali. It wouldn't be what I would have done. I recommended he take her to Las Vegas, but he could write a margin check for $35,000 to take her to Bali. Then he could also, nowadays they don't have margin checks. They used to have margin checks in the 90s. They may give you checks, but nowadays you get a card. Well, anyway, take her to Bali. That's fine. Put it on the card. No problem, right? Right. You could also, even if the person didn't have the cash, let's say they're kind of middle class, they could also buy the options on margin. Okay. So they'd have $70,000 of margin. Well, anyway, they wouldn't have to worry about a margin call because they bought the options until the end of the year anyway. Even if the market dropped 30%, whatever. That's why this position's designed where you don't have to take off the hedge. It keeps making money as the market goes lower. Also, if the market drops 15%, it's worth $184,000 right now. But as time goes by, you can see it's worth like $200,000 by expiration. So you're actually earning a little time premium. You actually have some options that are bought, and then you've sold some also. All right. So that's kind of how that works. So if the market's down 50%, I just ran some numbers. Your portfolio would be worth $559. The options would be worth $600,000 positive. So together, your portfolio will be worth $1.1 million. So no margin call. I didn't factor in if you took her to Bali. I didn't factor in the negative margin balance, but you'd be fine. You'd be fine. Okay. And if you didn't hedge, you would have a margin call if you took her to Bali and you bought. Well, if you took her to Bali but didn't buy the options, I don't know if you'd have a margin call. Well, anyway, whatever. But you'd be mad because you'd be down nearly $600,000. Okay, market's down 20%. I ran the numbers again. The portfolio would be worth $895. The options would be worth an additional $267 at expiration. Altogether, that's $1.1 million. Versus you'd be down $5,000 from where you're at now. That's not that big a deal. And the market down 50%, you'd lose $7,000 from where we're at now. To me, that's not a very big deal. The numbers in red, I think, are kind of the cost or whatever. Now the market down 5% is actually the true cost of this. I made a little update since I updated the slide, but the market down 5% is where or 5.5%. 5302 is right where you would incur max opportunity loss, because the portfolio would be down 5%, which is what, $50,000 on $1 million portfolio. And this is $1.1 million or $1.2 million. So this would actually be like $60,000 or something like that. 55,000. Okay. Well, at the same time, you'd be out $35,000 on the options, because the market didn't drop enough for your protection to kick in. You need about a 10% drop before you're covered after about an 8% drop. But you need more of a severe drop. So that's the other true cost, is you're going to be out 35,000, and you don't get any hedge at all for the first couple of percent. So that's something to think about. But on paper, that it comes to a $35,000. Bottom line is it's a $35,000 difference over doing nothing. And of course, that's the cost of the options. I think those are the ones I finally went with, where 34,620 were their final cost. I messed around with the ratio a little bit to make it have optimum protection. But then, because I had one that cost $39,000, but I fixed it a little bit. Okay. So now here's the question from the viewer was, what about the upside? And I didn't answer that. No, this position is not capped. Because you aren't selling anything to buy these options. You're just buying puts. So you're pretty much just pissing the money away, so to speak, because buying options, as I always talk about, is a sucker bet. In this case, you're fine with the sucker bet part of it, but because you're in tune with it, you realize, okay, it's a sucker bet, and I'm going to be the sucker in this case for certain, because I would rather have this outcome. If the market's down 50%, I would rather be down 7,000 than being down 500,000. So you're going to take being the sucker, but in the cases where the market's up, you're just going to make $35,000 less. And here's a really simple way to think about it. In percentage terms, the hedge costs 3.5%. So if right now the market's up 25%, the S&P is, and it goes up another 20% from here, and my hero does this hedge. Okay, well, so that means the market's up 45% on the year. You have to take the 3.5% off the return, because you blew 3.5%, or he blew 3.5%. All right. So instead of being worth up 40, he's up 37 or something. So if the market is up another 10% from here, he only realizes 6.5% of it. Because when the market's up, it's going to cost him 3.5 points. And that's a lot easier way to think about it. But yeah, if the market's up, 20% from here, he'll make an additional 198,000 from where we sit right now. So he's not capped at all. Yeah, he would have been up 233 had he done nothing. All right, so let's go from here to the conclusions. And okay, so I know this is kind of a silly scenario, but I was trying to do something fun. But I bet there's people out there in similar situations to my hypothetical friend in this situation. Luckily for people like that, this is the golden age of options. Commissions are free. There's tons of liquidity. There's great software out there. There's great places on the internet like Tasty Trade, and lots of good education out there. I was going to plug Tasty Trade, but there's tons of other places too. 20 years ago, something like this would have been practical only if you had multiple millions of dollars. People that are wealthy have known about this tactic for years, and institutions use tactics like this with options to hedge. Normally, I recommend selling options. I feel kind of like a hypocrite. And that's why I love the Defiance funds, because they sell options daily on a daily basis in a systematic way. So that does something for your account that I like. That brings in an income, and it also gives you a buffer. And the reason it works so well is because when you sell options, you have a slight advantage in your favor. Okay. Buying options is a sucker bet. And if you do it all the time, you'll bleed all your money away. All right. We're doing a spread, which negates some of the bleed, but still this is a 9x8 long spread. So it is long optionality, and it will bleed. I've designed it to bleed as little as possible, but we're trying to protect $1 million. It's amazing that we can only do it for 3.5%. That's what it comes down to. It's 3.5%, basically. All right. So there's additional caveats. In real life, if someone's trying to follow this or something, I would do this trade in 2 parts, if not 3. you could probably do it for cheaper than 35,000. You could break it up. And I thought about doing the video like that and breaking it up in 2 parts, but it just made it too confusing. This is actually a fine way to do it. It's a clean way to do it. Just do it in 1 part. You should just know it only hedges downside from where we're at now. If the market goes up another 10 or 15% from here and then drops 20 or 30%, because it was up first, and it drops, but it doesn't drop far enough for your protection to kick in. Even though we had a tremendous drop in the market, your protection wouldn't have done you any good. So it only protects you from here when you do it like this. If you did it in 2 or 3 parts, you might save yourself a little bit of money, and you would also catch a move like this, like I just described, where it rallies from here, All right. So the other advice would be, let the pros do this for you. Look at buffer funds. QFLR is a good one. I like that one. Go check it out. It's doing the same thing as this in a more sophisticated way, and it does it 24/7 in a systematic way. And they have bleed too, and their bleed is their upside's capped a little bit. The way I did this, the upside is not capped. But in any event, go check out QFLR. If you like this kind of stuff, you could have it done a lot more efficiently and professionally. This situation was kind of like an emergency. This guy's like an accidental millionaire. He didn't mean to be a millionaire. He just been working hard his whole life, and he checked the box, growth only or whatever. One of his friends told him go growth or whatever. So, it'd be a good problem to have, but all of a sudden when you have $1.2 million, that's a lot of money, and you make $250,000 in a year. Let's say his job pays $75,000. So he's making 3 times what a yearly salary he's up. You don't want to see that. You don't want to lose that, even though it's just an opportunity loss. Anyway. All right. So, but the other thing to really think about is if my buddy had a properly diversified portfolio in the first place with the buckets, this wouldn't have been a problem. He maybe still could have put on a little hedge, but he wouldn't have needed as big of a hedge, because if you're 60-40 or 60-30-10, the 40 or the 30-10 act also as a hedge or a buffer. So, he might still want to do something like this. I ran the numbers. You could do something like this, even if you just had a $250,000 position in SPY, you would be up $60,000 or about $50,000. You'd be up about $50,000 on paper. Well, you could protect that as well efficiently. Now the commissions are free. You could protect a $5,000 capital gain. If they're going to charge you any commission, you could hedge anything you want. I mean, the commission's the only limiting factor. The old days, the reason you wouldn't do it to hedge $1 million is commissions were like at a minimum 50 a contract. And you had to do, what was that, a 9x10 spread? Anyway, you can see the story. It just wouldn't be efficient. All right. But this also is a great example of something to speak with your planner about. If you don't have a planner, get one. Jay does planning. I mean, but I'm saying there's a jillion other people that do planning. I mean, there's a lot of people. And if you have this kind of money, some planners won't talk to you until you have 7 figures. But if you're one of these accidental millionaires or whatever, or middle-class millionaires, whatever you want to call it, heck yeah, get you a planner. I don't know. That's my advice. But like I say, if you do it yourself, hit me up in the DMs. I like to run hypotheticals or whatever. I can help you with hypotheticals. All right. I like to help. You guys have a good day. I'm going to go do something with Jackson.